there's a lovely tribute to Cliff Burton on here, your original bassist. Tell us about that, and I guess there was an orchestra member who specifically was highlighted on that.
Yeah, so unfortunately, Michael Kamen, who really was steering the ship on every front for the first project, he passed on, I think, in 03, 04. So we needed to bring in a new collaborator, and the director of the San Francisco Symphony for the last 25 years, Michael Tilson Thomas, was happy to step into that position, and we were happy to have him. He, as we were trying to figure out what we could do with this project to make it different than the first go around, which was really important to all of us, because we didn't want to just repeat what we did 20 years ago. We wanted to take it someplace different. He suggested that we highlight some of the members of the orchestra. A significant difference between this outing and 20 years ago is that last time, the members of Metallica were all in their mid-30s, and we were pretty much the youngest people on stage. All the orchestra members were pretty much older than we were. Now, 20 years later, the members of Metallica in their mid-50s, there are lots of the members of the orchestra who are in the 30s and 40s who skew younger than we do. And a lot of those guys now have been reared on rock and even on Metallica. So the differences between the two worlds were, 20 years ago it was a really, really wide gap. It's much narrower in 2019. And so MTT suggested that we highlight some of the Metallica fans in the orchestra. And one of them was Scott, who's the lead bass player, Scott Pingle, who's the lead bass player, and who was a big Metallica fan, and obviously was, we didn't know at the time, but was very influenced by Cliff Burton. So about a week before the big weekend, we were doing rehearsals at HQ, and he showed up, and there were lots of different people and lots of different ideas for us to try to take this to some different place. And he showed up. We had been told that he was a big Cliff Burton fan, and we had been told that he was going to do some sort of tribute to Cliff, his version of Anesthesia, which is a very, I think for the Metallica fans and for us, it's a very sacred piece, obviously, because of Cliff's story and so on. And that's not something that you want to undertake unless you can pull it off. And we were skeptical, I'll have to admit. And he walked into the space at HQ. I'd met him a couple of times before. Super sweet guy, very, very easy, very sort of easy energy. And he started playing, and it was definitely one of those holy beat moments where you're kind of freezing and going, is this really happening? And he channeled the spirit of Cliff Burton in the most beautiful way while he added his own kind of color and dynamic to it. And it was this great meeting of what I thought was the rock and roll world and the classical world came out in those 4 or 5 minutes as he did his tribute. And at both of the shows at the Chase Center, when the fans experienced this, I mean, there was not an eye dry in the house, and people, it was absolutely one of the highlights of the weekend.